Good evening and welcome to our Vox 8. This is the 8th Vox session in our Vox e-speaker series, and we are delighted to welcome the awesomely talented and super nice human being, Mr. Alex Archer. If you've not met Alex Archer, he is possibly the world's greatest audio engineer. He works with everybody. I'll let him tell you who he works with, but he works with everybody. And he's in charge of Vivo, he's in charge of, or you just name it, he's going to tell you. It's going to be really good. If you want to send a message through to Alex, there's the chat box which is being monitored by Stu, and he'll filter out the decent questions. But you can ask anything. Why he has long hair, why he had dreadlocks when he was a kid. We don't anything you like, you can send that through. So please do send the questions through. Quick reminder of the session guidelines. Please don't have your microphones unmuted because we would like to make sure that the session has a nice flow. And also, if we do get any good questions at the end and we don't have a chance to cover them, send them through to us and we'll forward them on to Alex for a nice response. So, my great pleasure to welcome Mr. Alex Archer. Woo! Nice to meet you, Alex. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you doing today, John?
We're good. Are you down in London at the moment?
I am, yes. I'm South London, Clapham Junction. We are doing our best to keep going.
Quite a while. You've been based in London. You've not been back up in Derby for COVID.
No, we stayed here. We we didn't leave. But I've been living in London for since 2011 now, so it feels pretty homely. And I'm married now and live with my wife, so yeah, we call this home. So we stayed here for as lockdown began. We didn't come back to Derby. We're looking forward to getting back soon, though, hopefully, to visit parents and family.
Yeah, we occasionally see them out and about and give them a wave. We start off a lot of these sessions with just trying to give the people who are listening a bit of background on your journey. So, you know, that's a little bit about when you were with us in band, maybe what school you went to, how you went to university, the sort of jobs you've been doing since then. If you could give us a potted history, that'd be great.
Sure, I'll try and keep it brief and not give you the full life story. But I was... Wow, blow my head start. I started having saxophone lessons with Dave Eno, when I was 11 or 12 years old, and he said I should join what was then Emijo, now Hot House, and I said no, I don't want to do that. It looks rubbish. Sounds awful idea. And I've kept this up for about a year, I think, and then I think I had a lesson on a Friday by coincidence, when I usually had them a different day. Walked past the room where the band was playing, just couldn't believe it. And I sort of was very friendly invited in and sat down. I think it must have been Emijo 3 or whatever. I'm not quite sure how they're all named now, in the second saxophones, and tried desperately to play along and just couldn't. Partly because I couldn't read music well enough, and partly because I just kept getting distracted by the amazing sound of everyone playing in this huge band, and became instantly hooked. And then so joined the band and played for my whole secondary education time. So I was at Landau Forte for 7 years, and there was some good stuff there. But doing what Hot House just confirmed to me that I wanted to be around music in some capacity. I was just so taken with the whole thing, and I think I found a real love for music that I hadn't quite tapped into at that point. And obviously there was amazing opportunities with Hot House. I learned a great deal and was really inspired through all those things to try and pursue music as a living. I discovered music tech. In fact, the first time I ever saw or set foot in a recording studio was with Hot House doing a band project, which we did a few recordings. And I think I still have this vivid memory of walking into Snug Recording Studios, Derby, seeing a spaceship of lights and just feeling really convicted. It's like, this is what I want to do. This is where I want to be. Had no idea really what was going on and how to get there, but I stayed for I think I was there every day that they were recording, long beyond not when I needed to be, just sat on the floor watching something about the whole place I really liked. So I took music tech A level. I had to do that outside of school. I wasn't available at Landau, so I did that one-to-one education, and then it was called Music with Computer Sound Design. That's my degree. It's now been rebranded Music Tech, but it was about music and composition, all based around using computers. I did that at the University of Surrey in Guildford. Surrey University also has a course called Tonmeister, which is probably the best sound engineering course in the world. So I watched a lot of people get a really good sound engineering education on the sort of adjacent course, but made friends with a lot of those guys and would sort of sneak into the studios at university with them and learned some more there. Didn't really know what I wanted to do or where to go when I finished university. I had done this 3 years of essentially composition-based course, so I thought I wanted to be a composer. And we had a guest lecturer called Andy Creamer. He used to come in. He's a very successful composer, and he kindly let me come around to visit him. Once I'd graduated, I moved to London. He let me come over, and we chatted one evening over a cup of coffee, and we got talking about stuff, and he just said to me, he said, "You don't want to be a composer, do you?" And I remember my heart was sinking, this feeling of like, I've been caught out. He said, "You want to be a record producer, don't you?" And I was like, I guess. Didn't think I could really say yes, because I had no idea. It didn't seem like a career. It didn't seem like an option in any kind of way. And he said to me, "Stop trying to do the composition, and go find a way to get into a studio. Just go work that out somehow." And so that became my kind of focus. And I managed to get a few internships in London with production management companies, which led to an opportunity to work with Steve Osborne, who's a record producer. He was based out at Real World Studios, which is the recording studio owned by Peter Gabriel. I got the opportunity to go be his assistant. Went there, spent about a year with him before moving back to London and sort of starting a self-employed career in London. So I had 2 days a week working as an AV consultant, mostly with a church based in Clapham Common, but just looking after all their kit, and would do studio sessions when I could find them, would do live sound jobs, very much learning as I went, being thrown into the deep end a lot, just working out how to do various things. And then eventually, through just people that I knew and was around, someone recommended me to cover for them on a vivo session. So the vivo sessions have now become one of my main gigs. At the time, it was recording 4 bands in one day. I turned up somewhere in North London. The whole pile of kit was just sat there. It was like me having a film. I was the first person there. There was just 4 big flight cases. I walked in, started dismantling, trying to I was Googling manuals. I was looking at cables, trying to work it out. It was all up and coming bands, but the bands that day were Lizzo, Catfish and the Bottlemen, and 2 others who haven't been so successful. And I was just there on my own, desperately trying to not get it all wrong. Clearly did something right. I've done every Vivo session since over the last, 4 years. And through that, I've worked with other clients and have now do what I do, which is a lot of music promotion, which is a lot of live sessions with artists, as well as some studio stuff as well, and occasionally a bit of live stuff. Hopefully that wasn't
No, it's amazing. It's just, you make it sound so normal, but to everybody else, that you're just doing this, amazing portfolio career, a bit of everything, and you seem to like and manage to get yourself in a place doing what you want to do. And I think that's quite important to lots of mums and dads out there, that they want their children to be happy, and being in charge of your own destiny maybe has a bit of something to do with that. Have you got an idea of what you're thinking of doing for the next 5 to 10 years? Is it the same?
So it's been nice that as I've been working with Vivo, which were so very kindly took a good chance on me, those sessions have built and got bigger and bigger. So when I started doing them, it was a few microphones, often acoustic, with up and coming artists. We're now doing big established acts. We have our own permanent warehouse space that we use. Last year we got to do Craig David and Dermot Kennedy and Kaiser Chiefs, which was a big one for me, just because 14-year-old me kind of lost his mind slightly at getting to record the Kaiser Chiefs. And so the scale of that has been really fun, and I've been very involved in that and built all the audio side of that. And through that, I've had opportunities to work with other art clients doing similar things, like Universal Music. We went to Lapland last year, recorded Carly Rae Jepsen. We just did a whole bunch of Zoom stuff, which was very weird, but working for Google, doing things remotely. So it's been great that it's still expanding. One thing I'm trying to do this over the next, hopefully 4 or 5 years or so, we'll build the studio side a bit more. That'll be doing more balancing the location recording with big bands. I want to balance that with working with new up and coming talent, maybe some more established acts as well, in a sort of mixing and production side. So that's the hope, and that the live sessions just keep progressing and keep building. yeah, there's a good work there, and it's
yeah, you're doing what you love to do, I think, is the thing, is that you love working with, you know, everybody from us right the way through to Lewis Capaldi. You know, you like the actual doing of the music tech, the recording, the meeting with people.
yeah.
I thought it was quite interesting because you must have some huge highlights where you've thought, wow, this is it. And then, you know, for me, there's always something else that comes after and goes, no, this is it. This is incredible. Can you, you know, point out any of those, you know, when you were just starting at university or when you were just starting to get your first gigs? You know, have you got any big things?
There's so many little points, like you say, that through the years I felt like real pinnacles. I mean, I remember winning a remix competition at university of I think it was a band. It was a band called Blood Red Shoes. There was sort of an indie band, and I did some fairly awfully dark dubstep remix of their single on my university computer, and won this remix single. So I got a record deal sent over because they released it, and I got to scan a 3-page record deal that said, "Every single penny this track might make, we're keeping. Please sign here." All right, fair enough. And I don't know. I remember it being released and looking on YouTube, and there was a comment in German, and I Google translated it, and well, it wasn't family friendly what they said, but it wasn't positive. So I mean, it still felt good at the time. And then I don't know, after that, we got to do, when I left university, some friends I'd met at university got signed to Island Records, and I became their sort of backline tech is the term. Basically, a jumped up roadie. I would drive them around and sort their kit out. But we did Glastonbury, and so I got to go for the first time to Glastonbury, and I had the artist wristband on, and felt so I was all that a bit of a big wig because I wasn't even playing the BBC introducing stage. I was just allowed back behind it, but I thought I was all that, you know, and had a bit of fun doing that. And then I remember the first time I got flown somewhere. I was doing front of house with some artists, and the artist called Daniel Wilson, and we went out to Norway. It was the first time I thought, that's nice. Someone had thought me valuable enough to pay for flights and take me places. And the latest one, I think the latest one for me was standing. Last year we recorded Kaiser Chiefs, as I mentioned, and they did 2 new singles, and then they played Ruby, which is one of their big hits, and they kicked off. And my assistant, I have an assistant, which is fancy. He just nudged me and said, "Are you okay?" Because I wasn't moving, and showed this huge smile on my face because I think I paid to see them live when I was a teenager, maybe 4 or 5 times, and there I was controlling the desk, doing it all, and I was like, "Wow, this is pretty cool." So yeah, the moments keep coming. I look forward to whatever else might come.
Yeah, man, it's cool. Have you noticed much of a change with the COVID crisis? You know, because I know a lot of musicians are doing, you know, online recordings. They send the files to each other. It's all done in the cloud. You know, do you think it's going to affect you long term?
Well, we've already done a project where we were working remotely. So we did a thing for Google Nest recently. It's called Nest Sessions. It is on YouTube, but we were working with Jessie Ware, Ollie from Years and Years, and we did it all remotely. So I was sat on Zoom with someone from Universal Music, someone from Google in America, and in this case, Jessie Ware, and we're trying desperately to direct her in how best to use a microphone and a camera, just doing what we can, but we can't hear or see what's happening on the actual devices till we get it sent over. So it's amazing that we can still collaborate and still work like that, and I'm very thankful that it's a chance to still work because most of our jobs involve being in a location. I certainly don't know what the future is going to look like for live music. Everyone I know in that world is nervous, and I think there's a few people struggling because there's a possibility of no gigs until, who knows, December, maybe next year. But I think there's been a lot of appreciation for the people who work behind the scenes. I even noticed when the Chancellor announced the self-employed scheme, the first 2 things he mentioned were musicians and sound engineers, probably because the only person in the room behind the camera is a sound engineer staring at him. But you know, I think there's appreciation for those, and it'll be I don't know what it's going to look like. Hopefully we'll be back on set in the next month or so, but we'll have to be very careful. There'll be a lot of socially distancing, and trying to get the bands playing again will be tricky. I just hope that we can get through it.
I think,
it's amazing to be able to collaborate via the internet. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? I mean, a lot of jobs now are adapting, and the ability to pivot affects every career. We're just talking to Tim Gorman, and his chemistry work, you know, carries on. You know, we've been talking to the vibration engineers for Dyson. they can work from home. Music's not, not unique. It affects and it changes with everybody else. And, when we're growing up and we're going through university and we're getting the first gigs and we realize the record label's ripping us off and we're not making any money in that, there are lessons to be learned on the way, which is, part of our job to try and teach the kids. Have you got things, personal mantra that you hold on to even now that you picked up while you were growing?
I think understanding the people side of it has been really important for me. Especially if you make it professional, it goes without saying that you have to be able to do your job and be good at what you do. But how you conduct yourself and how you go about that, I think, can be more make or break a lot of the time. And that's, I think you might know who you've spoken to. I've heard a lot of sort of straight up musician players who go and play gigs say, you've got to be a good hang. But I think being good at just how you get on with people, how you handle difficult situations has been an important thing for me. We do a lot of stuff where we're in quite technically challenging setups. We might be on location somewhere, and so the fly. If that's the power goes out or someone's forgot a specific cable, if you get flustered and panic and start getting stressed, people don't want to work with you. If you stay cool and go, okay, this is tricky, I'm going to do my best, try and solve it the best we can, I think people will appreciate that a lot more. So being confident and calm and not getting too het up has been important for me. That, and the other thing that was really drilled into me, if you're going to do what I do, which is more working with musicians, is how you treat them and how you are being present in the room with them. One of my first jobs at Real World was with Steve Osborne, working with Simple Minds.
Yeah.
And Charlie, this amazing guitarist from Simple Minds, was doing a bunch of guitar solos for a record Steve was producing, and I sat with my back to Charlie. I sort of sat, like this, hunched over my iPad. I was reading a manual for an instruction manual for a piece of studio kit. I thought I was doing the right thing. We got out of that. We did about an hour or so of solos, and we went for lunch. And Steve literally pushed me against the wall outside and went, "How dare you?" I was completely taken back. He said, "You've just sat there and told Charlie from Simple Minds that you don't care about his playing. And if you don't care and you're in the room with him, why would anyone listening to his records care?" And I was like, no, of course, no, that's how he felt. And I do so many sessions now where I really make an effort to be watching the artist when they're performing, and I'll nod and I'll sort of try and be encouraging, because their manager, their label, everyone will be sat like this.
Yeah.
And I just think you're asking someone to perform, to be creative, to participate in something. If you can't be bothered to watch them do it, why would they care? So I think that idea of, and it's obviously got harder because we've all got amazing social media and iPhones and things that are great now that we're forced to be a part. But when we are back together, being present and being really aware of where you are and being in the room, I think has been something that has been really helpful for me.
Honestly, I've never heard anybody say it better. Being present in the room. We try really hard with our kids, and we've got kids. We want them to be able to communicate. We want them to be there, and we want them actually to pay some respect once the session's finished as well. Send a message of thank you, follow them up with a quick social media post. All of these things are really vital. Being present in the relationship. It's not about just sitting there and doing your job and then I'll never speak to them again, is it? It's really, and we've got a great question coming in from Eleanor, who said, what you do sounds amazing. And do you see yourself as being at the top of the industry? I'm sure you won't say that because you're the most humblest guy I know. But, who are the people that we look up to still? We're talking about Peter Gabriel. There's a legend there.
It's funny I've kind of found a bit of a niche. The stuff that I do for Vivo as on location sound engineer is kind of a bit specialist. It's a bit hard to describe exactly what that is. And I hope in that world I'm in the UK, in London, one of the guys. Certainly not, there's a few guys out there doing it. But it's just something that it's become my speciality and I've done a lot of. And it is tricky. There's a lot of reasons why, I think. But when it comes to recording artists, gosh, no. There's so many amazing engineers and producers out there. And there's so many people that I look up to, and I try and stay constantly looking at tutorial videos and watching big name producers and engineers. I'll go find things on YouTube that they're doing and watch them, and any chance I get to learn from someone, I'll take that, because there's guys who do amazing stuff, and I can only hope to get as good as they are at mixing a record or producing a record. So yeah, long way to go, and I think that's the nature of that industry. It's never one where you say, hey, I've made it, I'm this. You try not to let it drive you crazy, constantly comparing yourself to other people, but you try and use it to say, what can someone else do that I can't? And try and learn that and try and take those skills on board.
One of the things that you told me a few years ago now was that you really felt that you benefited because you did the practical side of music and that supported your music tech side. And I thought, well, if that's the case, then surely as a musician, I should have an appreciation of the technical side, because, you know, I need to know what a sound guy's going through to try and get what he needs to get done. And that's my responsibility. So we've got a couple of questions which I can sort of combine together. One from Ben is about, you know, is it best to have music level tech to go and do a music tech type degree? Another one's from Andrew saying, you know, what advice do you give to a young indie band starting out, where to record, what they do? And then Zoe Franklin or Max said, you know, how many mixes do you make of each track? And it's kind of all the same thing for me. You know, they need to be aware of all of it, a bit of the practical, a bit of the music tech, and then, you know, a bit of the communications, the whole thing. You know, how do you tell people that sort of information?
Yeah, as you say, I joke I am a musician who's found himself behind a mixing desk sometimes. And I think that's a bit unfair on a lot of sound engineers. There's a lot of great, and in fact, actually, I don't think it's any coincidence that a lot of the best sound engineers that I know, people who do the big tours, are often really good musicians, and they treat it as a very musical job. Ellie Golding, sound engineer, he has a guitar pedal board at his feet, which he's running all sorts of live effects, and he knows that set off by heart. I used to work for an artist called Esper. There was a pop project of Emma Smith, who's a jazz singer as well, amazing jazz singer, and I think she got quite surprised and used to then tell everybody, because I would sing basically every word of the set as she was singing it. I learned it like I was learning it like a guitarist to play it, which was my main instrument, because I would control and I would change the balance and the levels depending on the song. So I knew where the guitar solos were. I knew where things happened, and it was easy for me to count in sort of 4 or 8 bar sections. So I just felt those different parts moving. So I'd played a lot of music, and it helps with communicating with those people, because, as you say, I think I had spent an awful lot of time. I'll tell you what, a good example. I remember playing a gig. It was in Guildford when I was at university. As an electric guitarist, I was forever too loud. It's a bane of everyone's existence, being around an electric guitarist. We are loud, noisy pains. And a sound engineer came up to me and said, "Hey, can you hear yourself?" I was like, "Not particularly." I was like, "Okay, turn your amp up till you can hear yourself, and I'll make it work." I sort of was staggered by this. This was, I was always just, "Can you turn your amp down? Can you turn your amp down?" Someone had said, "Why do you have your amp loud?" And so I can hear myself. Okay, that makes sense. Let's work together and make a best solution. And that kind of approach has been really important. So I think a lot of the different artists that I work with, because I don't work with one artist, I work with a lot of different artists, one day at a time. I think they appreciate that I understand and think about it from how they're feeling and what they're going through. And as you say, it's more that I think the musicians who are wanting to become professionals can be aware of what sound engineers are going through as well, potentially. It just makes the whole experience more harmonious. The second part was, the question about how many mixes do I do? Often quite a lot. It can vary. But I try to do a lot of comparison when I work. So I'll often do a version, go get a coffee, come back, listen again, see if I think it's better. I can make it better or worse. Make it that, and then I'll listen to both versions and sort of compare them back to back. It's constant listening, and again, that kind of listening has been. I try to do quite a musical listening, not super technical listening. I'm listening to things like emotion and feeling, and does it make me excited listening to it? Not getting too caught up on are the frequencies correct, because that doesn't really matter, and that's not how anyone who's going to listen to what I do is going to be thinking about it.
So when we've got young kids who are great musicians and they want to go and do music tech, is a music tech A-level a good idea? How do they get into? Why did you choose Guildford? I mean, what was...
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. I think A-level music tech is still a pretty good course. As so many of these things are in this world, I mean, I probably learned more in 6 months at Real World Studios than I did in 3 years at university. And that's not to be, to be anti-university anyway. That time was invaluable to me. I learned so much from just hanging out and getting to be a musician and play music and study music for 3 years. That was a super important time. But I think if you really want to get into the specifics of it, there's no better way of learning it than getting in the studio if you can. Granted, that's difficult, but it is an industry that does work, that has an understanding of apprenticeship and that kind of learning. So it's very common for a lot of guys to have assistants. So I always try and take an assistant on the job. And my assistant's paid. Make sure he gets paid a day rate. But I'll also sometimes have another unpaid sort of intern. And that's something I extend to anyone who's really keen and wants to get in touch with me. If I can, I'm more than happy to try and get you on a session with me for a day, or bring you along to a Vivo thing as we can. There's obviously some stuff that I can't bring people to, but go hassle any studio you can find in Derby or in Nottingham. I'm not sure what gig venues are still going, but go see if you can make friends with one of the old sound boys who's there, because you will learn so much doing that. And I'm sure A-level Music Tech is a great course still. And if you want to go to university, I think people look for that. But I don't know really if it's compulsory to people at the university. It's still such a new education thing. I guess it's been 10 years or so, 12 years, but I'm sure universities are understanding that a lot of schools still don't offer it, or that people are having to learn it in lots of different ways up until 18. And I think, these are some great university courses. I picked the University of Surrey in part because of the Tonmeister course there was really well respected, and it'd been teaching that sound recording music tech side of thing for longer than anywhere, maybe 20 years odd. And it was, at the time, was very connected to the BBC and a lot of these grand traditions. I also looked at a course at Leeds College of Music. Again, I think it's important to look at those courses, and I would really recommend looking to find out what experience the people teaching you have. If I was looking at a bunch of different courses, that's what I would do now. I'd be looking at who they get as guest lecturers, who are they getting out from the industry to come and talk to you, or what's the people who teach you, what is their background, because that's hugely helpful, I think, as well.
Yeah, it's good, man. Really good. You just we've got a question from Elved, because you managed to mix Will's latest song. You basically facilitated all of that, and you did it in this immersive 360 Dolby Atmos mix. He was interested in knowing, basically, have you seen any other acts doing that type of thing? Or is stereo still going to be the king for the next 20 years? What do you think?
It's a funny one. I think how people listen to music will always be driven by what device they're listening to it on. And in fact, it's been quite weird. For a long time, music's got better and better and better quality, from vinyl through CD through digital, and now we all stream it on our phone. Weirdly, the quality of music's probably got a bit worse. And that's something that I have to factor in. And before I had the chance to mix Will's song in 360, I remember listening to Peter Gabriel recording in 7.1 surround sound at Real World that was being worked on. It was the most amazing thing I'd ever heard. It blew me away. But of course, the difficulty is you have to have 7 speakers in the room, and I think that's going to be the interesting thing with immersive audio and how that develops. If they can make it in a simple set of headphones where people can access it and hear it easily, I'm sure it'll catch on more. But at the moment, I've not seen a whole lot of that stuff, just because unless you get the chance to sit in the Dolby Cinema where you hear it in full effect, it maybe loses a little bit of something. But I know I think as an industry, music production and music recording has been constantly looking back to the golden era of the 60s and technology wise. And I think there's a bit of a new movement to be like, well, why are we so backwards looking? Why aren't we looking for the future? what amazing things can these computers do for us. So I'm sure immersive audio will be something that, even if it's just the guys working on it, will want to explore. It'll be interesting to see where it goes.
Yeah, true. Just do one more, because we've got quite a lot of superstar young musicians who, they're interested in getting better as players, recording content and getting that content out. And it's a really difficult question that they want to know, but how do they get themselves, broadcast broadly on things like Spotify? Do you have to use, specific music distribution agents? I mean, we use DistroKid, TuneCore, Landar, CD Baby. They all do a great job. If the young indie band really wants to get out there and make some waves, and Will wants to get more people listening to his track, what would be your golden nugget of advice?
I mean, sadly, I'd say go focus on writing the best song you can. I know that's a bit not the answer, but there's so many, even new artists now. There's a whole bunch of pretty low quality recordings of great songs that will catch on and do things. That is ultimately going to be the biggest thing you can invest, is making sure you've got a good song. The technical specifics of how you release it, I'm lucky that most of that gets handled by other people for me. So I think there's probably articles out there that will be able to give you better answers than I can. But I would say invest in making sure you've got a good product. Think about how you want to release it, because there's some scary statistics about how many songs are released, 100,000 tracks a year or something, and how few people listen to those. So think about when you want to release it and what you're going to have. Have you got a second single ready to go, or is it part of a bigger project? And I think other than that, just work out where best to invest a little bit. If you've got a little bit of money to invest in it, even if it's only 150 quid or something, work out where best that is. Is it getting someone like myself or someone to go mix it so it sounds really good? Is it getting a mastering engineer to work on what you've done, or getting some promotion? Just make sure your product, which is the recording and the song, are as good as possible, and that's ultimately going to be the best thing to make sure it gets heard.
We got told that actually streaming platforms are really a marketing tool for helping you, where you direct people once you're doing your live music. Be a gigging band, be a playing band, be a performing band, and that's where people listen to it for the first time and experience it with the real emotion, and then they go and stream, and that's how you build it. And that's for new kids on the block, not literally. That's how they get started. So I'm gonna have to start winding it up, mate. But I'm afraid it's time of the chat for my favourite memories with Alex. Or I'm sure you've got more than a few that you can't share with us because of the watershed. But I do remember driving back from the Midlands Jazz Festival, and you were following us in your little car. I think it was a Daewoo.
No, it was a Clio. It goes Clio, Bala.
That was the Renault Clio, yeah.
And there were boiled sweets going over cars and sticking on windows, and there were dreadlocks involved. I don't know if you've got any nice memories from.
Well, I do remember being impressed. Yeah, I believe it was Wigan Jazz Festival we were driving back from, and I believe a certain lead trumpet player. I've never known the accuracy managed to get a boiled sweet, you're right, out of the back of a minibus and somehow onto the windscreen of my Clio at about 70. Well, let's call it 68 miles an hour. Yeah. The accuracy was very impressive. I had some amazing experiences and great times with Hot House. Getting to go to New York. I have a slightly unhealthy addiction with New York now, and I blame you entirely, John. I spend pretty much every couple of weeks checking flights for when they drop, and just on the hope to get to New York again. And that was, I got off a plane, not really sure what to expect. I had my tiny sort of Derby head exploded by the size of this place. Never quite been the same since. And so that was an incredible trip. And honestly, it's just the whole experience is. I don't think I would be doing what I do now if I hadn't joined Hot House and joined the band. I don't think I would have seen music as a viable career option. I don't think I would have been inspired by the people around, whether it was George Hargall, the Bunting Brothers, these amazing players. They made me think I could do this, and the education was second to none. And it's so it stood me in such a good stead that
very cool, man. Very
valuable.
Cool. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to Alex Archer, the superstar video engineer. I'm sure if there's any questions coming through from the guys that they would like answers to, Alex won't mind if I forward them on and hook him up. I think we're going to be able to announce that Alex might be able to do some personal coaching for any of the Hot House kids who are interested in getting in touch. If there are mums and dads out there who would like to have a discussion, please do get in touch with one of the team, and we can begin that with Alex, and maybe we can help facilitate a career in music tech for you at some point in the future. So on behalf of everybody in Hot House, Alex, thanks so much for giving up your time. It's been an absolute blast.
My pleasure.
We hope you have a great couple of weeks, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks, everybody.
See you soon.
Yeah, bye.
Thanks a lot. See you later. Bye.